Joining us now live on the Newsline is Seamus Bruner. Mr. Bruner is Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute. His latest book is called Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Seamus Bruner, good morning, and thank you for the time.
Hey, Jeff, it's great to be with you.
Give us a sense of your background. I mean, I could read the bio to folks and the great work you did with Peter Schweizer, et cetera, but give folks a sense of your background that led you to be at the White House this week. That's pretty good stuff.
Well, I mean, I'll make it quick. I studied political science in college, thought I might want to go into politics, took a job interning for Peter Schweizer in 2011, and after about 6 months, I realized I wanted to have nothing to do with politics. Peter Schweizer is such a great investigative journalist, and working with him, I helped expose the insider trading in Congress. In the book, Throw Them All Out. We did a book, Clinton Cash. That was probably the most exciting project I had ever worked on, following the money to the top of the Clinton Foundation and the pay-to-play schemes there. We exposed the Biden corruption and the foreign deals with China and Ukraine in 2018. I wrote a couple of books of my own. I wrote a book called Compromised, How Money and Politics Drive FBI Corruption. That was all about how James Comey, Robert Mueller passed through the revolving door to get rich, back and forth through the government, working for contractors. And then this book, Controligarchs, because our motto is to follow the money, after about 10 books working with Schweizer and exposing politicians, we thought, why don't we follow it to the class above the political class, the elite donor class, and found some really shocking stuff there, including stuff that I was briefing the White House on Wednesday, and that is that none of these protests, these riots, the anti-ICE violence that's going on in Portland and in Chicago, really none of these big protests are totally organic or grassroots. They are all funded in varying degrees and various pieces of these protests. It's really an industry, the protest industrial complex. We call it Riot Inc. And so like any other company, Riot Incorporated has many divisions. Yes, it's got the boots on the ground Antifa division that does a lot of the violence and the smashing and the burning and all of that. But it's also got other divisions like a PR and a media division. It's got a very important legal division where it can get these protesters out of jail in a matter of hours or 24 hours and back onto the streets to continue the chaos. And so that's a pretty sinister thing when you think about it. It's not just one Antifa thing. It's a whole ecosystem of civil unrest, and it is extremely well funded. We found that over $100 million from these elite controligarch foundations, things like, of course, George Soros' Open Society Network, but also the Arabella funding network, the Tides funding network. These have spent over $100 million going to dozens of organizations that each play a unique role in the protest industrial complex. So that was pretty shocking. And I think the most shocking thing that I mentioned at the White House on Wednesday is that we've also found that more than $100 million from taxpayers has gone to fund these elite NGOs that are the lubricant in the gears of Riot Inc. So people would be pretty upset to know that they are indirectly funding this chaos.
We have talked to folks on the air before about Arabella, etc., and so the audience has a bit of familiarity just from this program, in addition to all the tremendous work you and those others that you mentioned have done. But it still strikes me that it is so broad and so deep, and it seems to still not register, or had not, until the president's convening a group of people, and you were one of them at the White House. Did you ever think, given prior administrations, you'd ever be able to tell the story directly to the President of the United States for possible action?
No, Jeff, I did not, and it was a pretty surreal experience. I mean, I found out on Monday that the White House called and said, "Could you come up pretty quick?" And I said, like next week, and they said Wednesday, and I said, "Okay, I'll be there." And I just have to applaud President Trump and his cabinet. Attorney General Bondi and Kash Patel, FBI director, they were all there. Secretary Noem of Homeland Security was there, and they are all locked in on this issue, and I think that we may be seeing the beginnings of the end of Riot Inc. I mean, we are all in favor of peaceful protests. Everybody, supports the Constitution and the First Amendment right. But when you're assaulting law enforcement officers, when you're smashing and burning businesses, and you're assaulting the journalists, I was surrounded there at the White House by so many brave journalists like Andy Ngo, who put their lives on the line to document this chaos, and they get beat up for it. So if you're going to be committing crimes, crimes like especially violent crimes, that is not constitutionally protected activity. Those are crimes, and the administration appears ready to crack down big time on the criminal violence going on in these riots.
The only problem with that is that these folks who are funding all this malfeasance, they're paying these folks. They're hired guns to go in and do the assaults, do the disruptive behavior. Yes, they'll support them with legal fees and bond and all this routine, but it's going to hit the paid foot soldiers in the effort. It's not going to necessarily get at the source, the Soroses and Schwabs of the world. How do you make your way up the chain to really stop it? Because those people don't care about the folks who are committing crimes on the ground. They're expendable. They'll go pay somebody else to do it.
Well, that's exactly right. And I would say that the administration, for the first time ever, is actually going to look at the mechanisms to crack down on the funding sources. And they have a lot of tools in the toolbox. I mean, President Trump has mentioned RICO. When you treat this as an enterprise, a racketeering enterprise, a criminal enterprise, where it's not just the foot soldiers, but it's everybody involved. And there is a case study in Atlanta. There was, in 2023, an event known as Stop Cop City, where all of these very pro-Antifa type groups, Marxists, anti-law enforcement groups, waged all-out war on the Atlanta Police Department, which was trying to build and now has successfully built a training facility. And over 60 rioters were arrested and charged with a variety of violent crimes, including domestic terrorism by the state officials, and also they were charged under RICO. They were investigated under RICO. So this is really the first scenario that I'm aware of where the RICO statute was brought to bear on the whole enterprise, including the organizations funding it. So those are some tools, but there's a lot of other tools, and especially when you have taxpayer funding going to the major funding networks. Every agency that has given a grant to an organization that then turns around and funds illegal activity, that agency is able to demand to see the books and say, hey, we just gave you a government grant, open up your books here and let's see if you're actually using this money appropriately. And if they're not, big things can happen there. Then above the agencies, you've got the Office of Management and Budget, run by the so-called Grim Reaper Russ Vought, who is very interested in this stuff. The Office of Management and Budget can go and look at these organizations. And then beyond that, you've actually got the enforcement agencies, the DOJ, you've got the FBI, and critically, the IRS and the Treasury Department. Some of the stuff that we found is that there's some foreign money going into these funding networks. And so the Treasury can look at that. I mean, you've got this guy, Neville Roy Singham, who is based in China. He's a Marxist. He is very anti-American and funds all kinds of chaos and unrest in the streets. So when you've got foreign money, the Treasury Department can get involved and start seizing and freezing assets. And then the IRS can look at the tax-exempt statuses. There's no reason that taxpayers should be subsidizing organizations that are funding violent crimes. And so the IRS can then revoke tax-exempt status, which is basically the kiss of death for these so-called nonprofits. And then again, the FBI and the DOJ those are going to be the most critical here, because you can freeze the assets, you can seize the assets, but George Soros and the others, they have money printers, so they can just print more assets. I mean, they've got more. It's a giant ATM machine for this radical left ecosystem. But you really need to get into prosecuting individuals.
GAI, Government Accountability Institute, online, g-a-i.org. Our guest, Seamus Bruner, is Director of Research at GAI, and he is author of Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. In our remaining couple of minutes, what do you hope happens in the next 3 to 6 months as a result of this attention by the administration and broadly based exposure to the general public on some of these topics?
Yeah, well, thank you, Jeff. There's only so much we as journalists can do in our mission to follow the money. We can follow all of the public money trails, but a whole lot of this financial flows, a lot of this money is flowing through dark money networks and crowdfunding platforms. We just found a crowdfunding platform that allows entities like, yes, Antifa, but also things like the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. And for those who haven't heard of that, one of its members was linked to a shooting at an ICE facility, not the most recent one, but the one before that. It was back in July. And after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork posted flyers on Georgetown University campus saying, "Hey, fascist, catch," and promoting itself as the only organization that's not afraid to celebrate when a quote-unquote Nazi dies. Really, really sick people who want to overthrow this country. They're getting funded through dark money networks. I mean, GoFundMe would be something that you're familiar with, but there's other platforms that we just don't have any visibility into. Law enforcement can get those records. Law enforcement can disrupt the financing of the violence and the chaos. I believe the administration is locked in on this issue, and just the mere investigation of it. Sometimes people want everybody to go to jail. I certainly want everybody who commits crimes to go to jail and have the book thrown at them. But even the mere investigation of it, it creates a situation where for banks and others called de-risking, where they they don't allow these organizations and entities to bank with them anymore. And when you prevent organizations from banking, it's very hard for them to operate. So just the mere investigation makes it harder for them to operate, and I think we're already right now at that step. The next step is charges and lock them up.
The book Controligarchs came out just about 2 years ago. It is even more important now. Controligarchs is the name of the book. Absolutely love the title. The author is Seamus Bruner. Thank you so much for taking so much time with us today, and especially for the work that you and everyone associated with this effort does. It makes such a big difference, and I hope we talk again soon.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Take care.
All right. Have a good weekend. Seamus Bruner, our guest. Mr. Bruner, again, the 2023 book, Controligarchs. However, as noted, just amazing stuff that as you read that, you'll say, well, that happened. He was right about this. And now, finally, people are paying attention in the White House, as opposed to aiding and abetting. G-A-I.org, that's the Government Accountability Institute, and Seamus Bruner is Director of Research at GAI, which was founded by Peter Schweizer, his partner in some of those prior books. And Mr. Bruner joined us live on the Newsline on News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.